action.
All right, we're on chapter 33, page 627. And there's a bubble boy. He lives in a bubble.
Why?
Immune system. Boy.
He suffered from...
That's from Seinfeld.
Immune deficiency.
Yeah, he's got an immune deficiency where he can't fight disease. So to keep him away from diseases, he has to live in a bubble.
Does he still live in a bubble today?
He's never seen that movie?
I thought he died.
Well, there's a lot of kids like that. I don't know if this was the
Yes,
one
I've seen
from the
before.
movie
And
or
then, like,
not.
at the end, he takes
You
off.
can read about him on page 26.
Ever made.
Was that wedding at Niagara Falls? Yeah.
So we're learning about this immune system that you have. If you didn't have one, you would have to live in a bubble too to survive, because there's lots of invaders out there trying to get into your body and destroy it.
And it says he died at age 12.
How would he do in a bubble?
What's that?
Like, how would they know to put him in a bubble
Yeah.
before he died?
He probably was very sickly, and they figured out it was his immune system, and so they put him in there.
But he basically didn't have an immune system?
I don't know what happened to it. It didn't
have
form
any
correctly, or there's all kinds of things that have to make your immune system work. Your thymus gland, I'll show it to you. Your bone marrow, your blood cells multiplying correctly, and if something's wrong with that whole system,
It says somewhere in the book.
you could have problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, read about it tonight.
Yeah. You should watch Monsters Inside.
That's an amoeba. Have you ever seen an amoeba before? There were some set up in the lab last week. Did you see one? They kind of crawl around, and amoebas are kind of like what your immune system white blood cells look like. They crawl around like amoebas, and they engulf particles that are foreign to your body. They do it they have a sense of touch. Their membranes touch something, and they have proteins on the surface of their membranes. And if the proteins lock on and recognize the proteins on the on the cell that they're touching, they know it's of your body. But if they lock on to proteins that are on the surface that they don't recognize, they'll then destroy that organism. So it all goes on without having to see. These things can't see. They don't have eyes. They're in your body where it's dark. They do it by touch. Question?
So they act as part of your immune system?
Yes, they act as part of your immune system. Now, it's not the amoebas that we were looking at in the lab. It's amoebas that are part of your body. There are cells in your body that are shaped kind of like this.
What happens if you accidentally eat an amoeba?
If you consume amoebas, you can get amoebic dysentery, which is very, very bad diarrhea, so bad it could kill you. Death on the toilet. Not good. Yeah, you don't want to get too many amoebas in your body. They first recognize cells that crawl around that are kind of like white blood cells in slime molds. And this is showing a multicellular slug, which is which makes up a slime mold, which is something we didn't really spend time learning about in this class, but it's a type of protist, kind of like a fungus that crawls around in the forest, decomposing things. And scientists have noticed that these slime molds have cells like white blood cells that go around and eat bacteria and other things that are trying to kill the organism. And so these are the simplest organisms which have an immune system, are the slime molds.
They're the what that have an immune system?
They're the simplest organisms that have an immune system.
Slime molds?
Slime molds, yeah.
There's a vaccine for that.
For what?
I don't know.
For slime mold? This is your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system basically is a system in your body that moves fluid around. Your body has fluid inside of it, water, and that contains sugars and stuff that floats around in your body. And basically, the body has a way of using that fluid to wash over your organs and clean them. And there's all this green area here that you see they're called lymphatic vessels.
Lymph nodes.
And yeah, they have little dots on them called lymph nodes. Those are those things right here. And what happens is, you have organs like your lungs and your heart, and what happens is, as the blood moves around your body, water comes out of the blood vessels. Part of your blood is water, and plasma is what we call the liquid part of the blood. And when the blood goes into your tiny capillaries, the water's squeezed out. And that water will wash over your cells and then clean them. Clean the cells of your body. And carry anything dirty away with the water. And the water is picked up. It's called tissue fluid at this point. It's picked up by these green vessels. They're called lymph vessels. And the lymph vessels carry that liquid that just washed over your organs, your stomach or your lungs or any cells in your body. Wash over them and takes that fluid to lymph nodes. Little circular things. They're all over the body, but they're concentrated under the armpits, around the throat and nose, in the breast area in women, and around the groins. These are areas that bacteria can get into the body. And if the bacteria get in, they need to be washed away. And so the tissue fluid sweeps them up, takes them through these green vessels into the lymph node, and inside the lymph node, there lives millions of white blood cells. Little amoeba-like cells that eat these invaders.
What does it mean when your lymph nodes are swollen?
That means you're sick.
Yeah.
That means what's happened is the white blood cells have noticed that there's a lot of invaders all of a sudden, maybe viruses or bacteria, and they'll multiply, you see. And they'll be destroying these invaders and multiplying, and that makes the whole lymph node bigger. And that's what your swollen lymph nodes are. There's a bunch under your throat here, and the doctor will feel on them. And if he feels them swollen, that probably means you're infected with something. Yeah.
They're called lymphatic what? The tissue liquid is picked up by...
Lymphatic vessels. They're like blood vessels, but they're lymph vessels.
You can feel them, right?
Lymph is the name of the fluid that flows within these lymphatic vessels. It's called lymph. Yeah, you can feel your little lymph nodes.
So the lymph nodes are made up of the thousands of white blood cells.
White blood cells live inside the lymph nodes.
Okay.
They're like these little green circles here. And so after going through the lymph nodes, the tissue fluid will be clean. The lymph will be clean. It'll circulate back up to the heart. And eventually the fluid gets dumped back in the blood right around here, right around the heart. And so the fluid goes out of the blood and gets eventually dumped back into the blood.
Oh. What good does that do?
Well, it cleans your organs. So it comes out of the blood, cleans off the outside of your organs. All the cells of your organs that are near capillaries get cleaned. The fluid goes back into the lymph nodes. The white blood cells kill anything bad, and then the fluid's deposited back in the blood.
I see.
So it's a cleaning
it's like
system.
a filter.
It's a filter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a filter.
So the outside of your organ, so like when you
Well, it's not only it's not only the outside of your organs; it's inside the organs too. It's anywhere where there's capillaries, those tiny blood vessels, which include inside your organs, outside your organs. All your cells in your body get cleaned.
So like when you see a science channel or something like that, there's like a surgery on the person's chest or something. You can see all the organs. So that outside part gets like washed.
That gets washed too. There's fluid constantly washing over it, coming out of the blood vessels, washing over it, getting picked up by these lymph vessels. And if there were any viruses or bacteria on those organs, they'd get picked up. Isn't that interesting? Yes?
Why do the lymph nodes swell if you're infected? If you have like a
Yeah, that's what she just asked. Inside the lymph nodes, there's white blood cells, and if they detect invaders, they start multiplying like crazy. And so you'll go from just a million white blood cells in the lymph nodes to a billion white blood cells in the lymph nodes. And those lymph nodes swell up, they get real big. There's a lot of activity going on in there, and that's why those things swell. So, that's all the green stuff. Cancer cells, by the way, are picked up by your lymph nodes. So if you have cancer, what they'll often do, let's say a woman, they find a breast cancer, a lump in the breast, cells multiplying out of control. They'll often take out all these lymph vessels because the lymph vessels will pick up the cancer cells that have broken away from the mass and are traveling. They usually end up in the lymph vessels. So doctors can actually go in there and snip out all these lymph nodes and just pull them out of the body. And your body can survive without them. You won't fight disease as well in that area, but it's better than dying from cancer. Mm-hmm. So that's often done when someone has cancer. They'll remove a certain area of the lymph nodes. Now there's some other organs in the body that are important in your white blood cells working. One part is the bone marrow. Inside your bones is bone marrow, red bone marrow. And that's where blood cells are made. There are stem cells. Stem cells are cells that can divide and become anything. There are stem cells in your bone marrow that multiply and become your blood cells.
Research that.
And they become white blood cells. They can become red blood cells, they can become white blood cells, they can become any kind of blood cell. They can become platelets, which are used for clotting. And so that's found in the bone marrow. So that's important. That's where the white blood cells come from. So if somebody's bone marrow isn't working right, they can do a bone marrow transplant. Have you ever heard of that? A BMT. They go into somebody's bones, pull out some of their marrow, and put it in your bones.
It's supposed to be really painful.
So then you
supposed to be painful, yeah.
keep making more blood cells?
So you can use their bone marrow that's working to make blood cells for you. You have to have, again, you got to find a matching donor that matches your blood type and matches your genetic type.
Is it like a liquid they put in you?
Bone marrow, yeah, I think it's kind of like a liquidy,
You can eat.
a liquidy solidy. I don't know.
You can eat like animal bone.
Yeah, if you crack open the bones,
you can eat bone marrow, but a lot of animals live off a hyena. Takes a kill that a lion stripped clean, and just the bones are left, and it just chews through the bones and eats the bone marrow.
Are stem cells what's like what are killed when you have like AIDS?
No, those are T cells.
T cells.
T cells.
Yeah, T cells. Let me tell you about this. It's good that you brought that up. There's a gland right here. It's called the thymus gland. It's the thymus. See right there, thymus. It sits right above your heart, and it makes. It's where some of the white blood cells go to mature. Some of the white blood cells, they're made in the bone marrow, and then they go here to fully mature. And so that's the thymus gland. And so we call those cells that go to the thymus gland to mature, we call them T cells after the thymus gland.
So
those are the ones the AIDS virus infects, HIV virus.
Mature white blood cells are T cells?
Well, the kind of white blood cells that go to the thymus gland to mature, they're called T cells. So the kind of white blood cells that do not go to the thymus gland to mature are called B cells. These are two types of white blood cells that we're going to study starting tomorrow. B cells and T cells. And so bone marrow and the thymus gland are important glands. Interesting to note, the thymus gland has already done its job by about your age. It is not necessary anymore. And will slowly become smaller and smaller, and by the time you get to my age, it's completely gone. I have no thymus gland left. It's just shriveled up to nothing. It's a little bit of fat that sits over your heart when you're older.
Really?
So all the T cells have matured and have been released into the lymph nodes, and there's some that crawl around in the bloodstream too.
What if you have too many T cells?
Well, if you have too many white blood cells, that can be due to a cancer of white blood cells multiplying. And the blood cell cancer is leukemia. You heard of leukemia? That's blood cell cancer. That's white blood cells growing out of control.
Is that possible to is it possible to have another cancer, kind of, cancers fight each other? So like when all these white blood cells come out, you have something else these white blood cells can attack and like
Can white blood cells
I don't
kill
know.
white blood cells?
You have to ask a doctor. I don't know. What's that?
Can good white blood cells kill cancer?
Yes, good white blood cells do kill cancer cells, but sometimes they can be reproducing so fast they can't keep up with them.
So there's good and bad.
Yeah, there's probably cancers right now occurring in your body that are immediately destroyed by your white blood cells, so you never have a problem. We've all probably had cancer before in our life, many times probably, but it's usually destroyed pretty quickly. But sometimes it gets aggressive and multiplies fast, and your body can't keep up with it.
Yep. So wear sunscreen.
Likely have all had cancer.
Probably, yeah.
Wear sunscreen.
And sometimes the cells will kill themselves too when they become cancerous. You remember that word, apoptosis, cell suicide? Cells can be programmed when they become cancerous to kill themselves. So there's other ways other than just the white blood cells work. This organ right here is called your spleen. Your spleen is like a big lymph node for the blood. Blood goes into the spleen. There's a ton of white blood cells in there that kill bad things in the blood, and then blood comes out of the spleen. The spleen is only located on the left side of your body. It's one of the only organs that is not bisymmetrical.
Can you get it removed? Can you get your spleen removed?
Yeah.
You can get the spleen taken out. A lot of times it'll become infected where there's bacteria living in it that the white blood cells can't kill. Or it can become damaged, like in a car wreck or something, and you have to take it out.
So it just cleans out your white blood cells?
It
cleans out your...
It means that your blood won't be as clean as the next guy's. And you probably have to take medication a lot more than the next guy to help you.
Yeah, there's this one thing where like you have to have your blood go through
A machine.
Mhm.
like every day.
Yeah.
What's that called?
That's called
That's dialysis.
dialysis. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's usually because of the kidneys not working, not the spleen.
Okay.
Good
So
job.
we got the red bone marrow, the thymus, the lymph nodes, the spleen. These are all organs that help us survive infection.
Is that why your spleen swells when you have anemia?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Anytime you get an infection, it can harm. It can cause the lymph nodes and the spleen to get larger because the cells inside are multiplying like crazy.
What's the other organ in your body that you get taken out when you're sick?
Then you get what?
You get like a disease that's specific to that.
Appendix.
Oh yeah, appendix.
Appendicitis, yeah. The appendix is like a big lymph node in the mouth. I know, I'm sorry. I was thinking you were talking about tonsils. I'm sorry. The appendix hangs off your small intestine.
What about gallbladder? Does that
Your tonsils, I was thinking having your tonsils out. Your tonsils, if you're wondering, are like a big lymph node in your mouth. The appendix is part of the digestive system. We'll talk about that later. It can also get infected pretty easily.
The gallbladder? Is that another
The
organ?
gallbladder is part of the digestive
There's a
system.
system,
We'll
I
talk
see.
about that
Okay.
later.
I'll wait.
So,
Exact.
you have your defenses, your body's defenses are divided up into two main categories. Innate immunity, innate means what you're born with. Innate immunity is the type of defense that your body has that kind of covers everything. And for instance, your skin keeps stuff out of your body. It's got a layer of dead cells, so nothing can penetrate it. That's one of your innate immunities. Your skin is a protection for your body. Your mucous membranes, the acidity of your stomach. These are all just basic protections that everybody's born with, and they don't change over your lifetime very much. We call those your innate immunity. Another type of immunity is called adaptive immunity. These are immunities that can change over your lifetime. And one of the forms of adaptive immunity is your resistance to disease that you build up over a lifetime. How many here had chicken chickenpox at one time. Does anyone get that anymore? Yeah? You know you'll never have it again? And if you got a chickenpox vaccine, you'll never get chickenpox again.
Can't you get shingles?
You can get shingles, which is the chickenpox virus lying latent and coming out later. But
Yeah, you just put those on there.
all diseases your body can get once and learn to fight that disease better. We call that form of immunity adaptive immunity because your body is adapting, you see. And this is kind of a learned immunity. This is the one good thing you'll experience, or one of the good things you'll experience about getting older, is you actually get sick less because you've already had a lot of the diseases. Kids get sick a lot more often because they haven't had them yet. But once you've had them, you can never get them again. Even a cold. Once you've had a cold, you'll probably never get that same type of cold again. It can come back in a mutated form, in a different form, and you can catch the different form, but the same one you won't get again. That's how come you can't get sick and give it to your brother, and then later come back and get it back from him. Because you've already had it and your body's adapted to it, you see. So you can't keep exchanging it back and forth with the same guy. Otherwise you'd never get well. Your family would always be sick. So that's a good thing.
What about like allergies that you can get by being exposed to certain things that you're not?
Yeah, an allergy is kind of, they're still not too sure how allergies work, but it's kind of an overreaction to your immune system. We're going to talk about those too. So you read tonight 33.1 and 2. There could be a quiz over that tomorrow.
Okay.